Jare gelede het ek en my dogtertjies cupcakes gebak. Toe stel ek voor dat hulle elkeen 2 eiers in die mengbak inbreek. Een van my girls was baie gretig om te probeer, maar toe sy 'n paar sekondes gewik en geweeg en getwyfel het, toe sê sy, nee wat, sy sal eerder kyk. Sy is bang sy maak 'n gemors. Ek was baie in die versoeking om te sê, dit is okay, mamma sal dit doen. Ek bedoel, ons kan mos nog steeds 'n wonderlike tyd hê, sonder die chaos. Maar gelukkig het ek die oomblik herken vir wat dit was. Sissy moes leer om 'n kans te waag. We went through about 2 or 3 eggs before she announced proudly that she had a plan. She'd break the egg over the bowl instead of beside it. I was proud and a bit relieved when the 4th egg finally made it into the bowl, and by the 5th egg, she handled it like a champ. Success. How do you measure it? How do you measure success at the end of the school year for your child? Think about it. If you can say it to yourself in a sentence. For most of us, the first place we look is the report card, right? And report cards do matter. They tell us whether a child is reaching academic benchmarks. But although they give us a snapshot of performance, they don't tell us the whole story. They show us what a child achieved, not necessarily how that achievement happened. As parents, our deeper question should be, can my child do this independently? Can they do it in a healthy and sustainable way? If they can actually plan their work, manage their time, start tasks without constant reminders and nagging, cope with frustration, take ownership of their learning, then that report card is a true reflection of their growth. But if good marks depend on constant supervision, pressure, or emotional strain, then we need to look beyond the numbers. Marks measure outcomes, but there's a different set of skills that determine long-term success in all areas of their life, and we'll get to that. Wanneer ons sukses net aan rapportpunte meet, dan loop ons die gevaar van 2 langtermyn gevolge. Ons kom in die versoeking as ouers om die groeiproses oor te slaan. Ons wil die paai vir hulle gelyk maak, sodat hulle daardie punte kan behaal. Ons dreig hulle om te leer, ons help 'n bietjie te veel met die projek, ons dra goed skool toe, ons WhatsApp die juffrou oor die boek wat by die huis gebly het. Yes, we are tempted to fix things for them so that they get those results that we want them to achieve. Die tweede ernstige gevolg is dat ons kinders leer om resultate meer as die proses te waardeer. Punte is alles, tot die punt dat dit integriteit ondermyn. Undervaluing the process tempts learners to fabricate outcomes. This is when they start copying homework, cheating in tests, or allowing a parent to complete the project for them. So where do our kids learn to value the results over the process? They learn it from us, the adults in their life. The cupcake moment with my girls stuck with me because it reminded me how easily our children pick up on our unspoken cues. My dogter is nie sommer van self bang om 'n gemors in die kombuis te maak nie. Sy het dit geleer uit my reaksie wanneer een van hulle kleintyd gemors het. My issue met 'n skoon kombuis het 'n harde, maar stil boodskap gestuur. Die morsige, pragtige leerproses is minder belangrik as 'n skoon kombuis. As a teacher, I can often pick up on parents' views just by the way that their child talks about a particular topic. In the same way, a child's response in certain situations often reflects the expectations or even the perceived expectations of the adults around them. Soms besef ons dit nie eers nie, maar ons reaksie stuur dikwels boodskappe aan ons kinders wat ons nooit bedoel het om oor te dra nie. Ek sien dit by die graad 4-tjies as ons 'n klastoetsie skryf en ons merk dit na die tyd. Daar's in elke klas 1 of 2 kindertjies wat ek kan sien in die versoeking kom om antwoorde in te skryf as ons merk. They value results more than the process. If we want our kids to really build the skills that lead to success in all areas of their lives, in school and beyond school, we need to start valuing the process, not the result. And our actions and reactions must communicate that. Okay, so let's do a quick test to see what our reactions can communicate to our kids. Do we value the process or do we value the result? Let's say your child brings an A+ test home. If you value results, you'll probably say something like, "You're so smart, we're putting this on the fridge." If you value the process more, you can say something like, "I'm proud of your hard work. Tell me, what helped you do so well? Was it maybe the way you studied? Was it how you pay attention in class?" That shows that we value the process. Kom ons sê jou kind bring 'n 60% toets by die huis aan en jy dink jou kind is in staat tot meer. As jy resultate hoor ag, sal jy iets sê soos, "Jy kan beter doen. Ek vat jou iPad totdat jou toetspunte beter is." As jy die proses hoor ag, kan jy iets sê soos, "Is dit jou beste? Wat dink jy het fout gegaan? Is dit dalk hoe jy leer? Is dit dalk hoe jy vra en die toetse beantwoord het?" The challenge I faced when my son was in primary school, and I think many of you do too, was this. I knew he was smart, but his results didn't always show it. I thought if I just step in and helped until the penny dropped, he'd take it from there. En dis die verkeerd. Ons moet net ons definisie van hulp 'n bietjie aanpas. 'n Kind met 'n hoë IQ is soms soos 'n hoë prestasie engine met 'n GPS wat nie lekker werk nie. You can have all the horsepower in the world, but if the navigation system, the GPS, is glitching, you're just going to get lost faster. Het jy ooit gewonder, hoekom 'n A-kandidaat skielik in die hoërskool uit die bus uitval? Of hoekom 'n sukkelende leerder skielik vlerke kry? Die antwoord lê hierin, in die verskil tussen die krag van die engine, hulle IQ, en die leiding van die GPS. Being smart, traditionally smart, having a high IQ, does not automatically mean a child has the tools to manage life. Research has tracked people from the age of 4, that was research in the 1970s, into where they are now in their 50s. And that research has found that a certain set of cognitive skills called executive function play a bigger role in success than IQ. Your brain's GPS, actually this front part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, gives you the ability to plan, to prioritize tasks, to change direction when you get stuck or when things don't work out, to control your impulses and to regulate your emotions. Navorsing het daardie vaardighede om te kan beplan, om jou emosies te kan en jou impulse te kan beheer. Ons noem dit uitvoerende funksies. En navorsing het gewys dat dit die ware sleutels tot sukses is. Nie net sukses op skool of in ons werk eendag nie, maar ook in ons huwelike en in ons fisiese en geestesgesondheid. En julle gaan nou sien hoe uitvoerende funksies letterlik al daai fasette van ons lewe kan beïnvloed. So if IQ is the sports car, then executive function is the GPS. I've been a teacher for 30 years and a mom for 25. And over those decades, I've noticed a recurring, heartbreaking pattern. Intelligent kids who underperform and who can't seem to launch. Now, granted, some of these kids had diagnosed learning differences like dyslexia or ADHD, and others had it really tough at home. But many didn't. On paper, these kids had every ingredient for success. They were smart. They had a happy home. They came from a great school with great opportunities. But somehow they weren't making it. And because we, the adults in their life, didn't understand this, we fell back onto old labels. They're lazy. They're spoilt. Hulle stel nie belang nie. They're disinterested. They have no grit. Geen selfdissipline nie. 2 of my own 3 children fell right into those categories. Smart but lazy, bright but scatterbrained. And there's one thing I know, and parents and teachers, this is where we need to have a mindset shift. You can't shame, nag, preach, or punish it out of them. You can't step back to let them learn the hard way. Because when we leave them to struggle without the right tools, they don't learn a lesson, they learn a label. Hulle begin glo dat hulle fundamenteel gebreek is. En uiteindelik begin daai vonkie, dat spark, begin verdof. Hulle voel onwaardig en hulle gee moed op, omdat hulle moeg is om te misluk in dinge wat almal sê maklik behoort te wees vir 'n slim kind soos hulle. Hulle verstaan dit self nie. So how do we keep that spark from going out? Ons doen die volgende. Ons hou op om na hulle resultate te kyk of hulle slegte houding aan te spreek en ons begin kyk na hoe hulle GPS funksioneer. A very important fact to keep in mind about how their GPS functions is this. Our prefrontal cortex, that front part of the brain, we use that to access executive function. And that is only developed at the age of 25. Yes, your prefrontal cortex is only fully developed at the age of 25. That means we expect kids to navigate life, to plan, to stay focused, to regulate their emotions, to handle stress, to remember things, with a GPS that hasn't been fully installed yet. Think about it. Okay, so what now? The good news is, between the ages of 12 and 25, the brain undergoes major changes. This is the best time ever to build executive function because the brain's neural pathways are malleable. Every repeated action helps pave a permanent road for executive function. And coincidentally, this is also, research shows, the best time to learn a new language or to learn to play a new instrument. They say that you can learn it during this time of your life, not play that instrument or play that language or practice that language for about 20 years. And when you try to pick it up again, it will come very quickly because you learned it in that time. They call this the use it or lose it phase because the habits, the skills, and the thought patterns developed during these years tend to hardwire into the adult brain, and our children need help from us to develop those. So let's look at the 5 major executive function groups and how we use them in daily life, because how they show up in children will show us what they are struggling with. The first executive function is working memory. That is the ability to hold and use information. And this is what it looks like in kids, how it shows up. Remembering a multi-step instruction, remembering mental arithmetic while keeping steps of a math method in mind. Think about doing long division. They have to remember the steps of long division while keeping their times tables in their mind, and remembering to write down homework or bring home all the belongings. I see this in my classes. I would tell a class, come inside, divide into groups of 4, sit on the mat and choose a leader to come and fetch a page from me. Normally they don't remember past, find a group and sit on the mat. In adults, working memory shows up like this. Remembering an OTP while navigating between apps. Multitasking in the kitchen. Does it sound familiar? Remembering to pick up milk on your way home, and even something like realizing the third sentence in a paragraph contradicts the first, requiring the brain to hold both facts simultaneously to compare them. The next executive function is cognitive flexibility, and of Afrikaans kognitiewe buigsaamheid. This is the ability to shift your perspective or change your plan when you get stuck. In kids in the classroom, it looks like this: being able to transition between activities or tasks you are finished, or you're at the end of your maths lesson. Now you must move on to Afrikaans. Some kids will struggle to understand or to cope with, we're done now, we're moving on. Vir al die oudjies wat nog nie al hulle somme klaar gedoen het nie, en juffrou sê, julle kan die res by die huis doen. Kinders wat sukkel met kognitiewe buigsaamheid, sukkel om daai oorgang te maak van, ons gaan nou na 'n ander aktiwiteit toe aan. Trying a different way to solve a problem is also cognitive flexibility, and accepting when the majority rules. When they're doing group work, children who struggle with cognitive flexibility will struggle to accept when the majority has made a decision and when their idea isn't being picked. In adults, cognitive flexibility looks like this: thinking on your feet when a challenge or a delay or a change of plans comes up, seeing something from someone else's perspective and being able to adjust your attitude and your mindset. Die derde uitvoerende funksie is beplanning en prioritizering, planning and prioritization. This is the ability to break a goal down into smaller steps and decide what's urgent versus what's important. Checking to see if they packed all the books necessary to do homework at school. That requires planning ahead. Packing your school bag, your uniform or your lunch the night before. And starting homework or project or studying for a test early enough. That goes to planning and prioritization as well. For adults, it looks like this: knowing which emails to answer first, or being able to estimate how long a task will take and not overcommitting yourself. Even packing for the holidays om 'n inkopieslysie te maak, dit is alles deel van die uitvoerende funksie beplanning en prioritisering. So parents, at this stage you might ask me, but why do some kids get it right? Hoekom kan party kinders al beplan en by daai goedjies uitkom? En die kort antwoord is eintlik maar net, hulle is baie gelukkig om met so 'n persoonlikheid gebore te wees. Some personalities are just more prone to be able to organize themselves and to plan ahead, but mostly it's a skill that needs to be practiced. Die volgende uitvoerende funksie, the next executive function, is emotional control. The ability to manage your feelings so they don't overwhelm your judgment or to stop you from getting things done. This is a very important executive function skill. I'm going to say it again. The ability to manage your feelings so they don't overwhelm your judgment or stop you from getting things done. In kids, it shows up like this: losing gracefully, working through frustration when you're struggling with something, managing your frustration when hearing no or wait, and calming your nervous system when feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated. I think that even goes for us adults too. For adults, it looks like this, and I just want to pause here and tell our moms and dads and our parents and our teachers, you can't teach something that you don't model. If we want our kids to learn emotional control, we must model it to them firstly. So talking through a tough situation without shutting down or losing your cool is modeling emotional control. Controlling negative reactions, handling rejections, staying calm in a crisis, those are all emotional management. Die laaste uitvoerende funksie is impulsbeheer. Impulse control, the ability to stop and think before you act and to resist immediate urges. For kids, they need to be able to wait their turn. Take their time with tasks. How many kids, even if you look back to when you were a kid, rushed through homework to be able to go and play? Impulse control helps you to do what you have to do to the best of your ability and to take your time with it. Physical boundaries is also part of impulse control. For adults, ignoring a phone notification when you should, choosing a healthy snack, and thinking before you act or speak. So what should we do about this, parents? I know what you're thinking, parents and teachers. I already don't have enough hours in the day. Now she wants to dump another responsibility on me. But the good news is that building these 5 skills isn't about doing more. It's about a shift in your mindset. We must change the way we think about results and processes. Daar is 2 spesifieke aspekte wat 'n reuse verskil maak. Die eerste een is om spesifieke gesprekke met ons kinders te prioritiseer, en die tweede een is om klein veranderingkies by die omgewing aan te bring, regtig net klein veranderingkies in die klaskamer en by die huis. Die idee is nie om meer dinge vir hulle te doen nie, die idee is om hulle te help om onafhanklik te word. Think of it like a tree stake. When a young tree is planted, you don't hold the trunk up with your bare hands for 24 hours a day. That'll be impossible. You hammer a wooden stake into the ground next to that tree and you tie it with a little bit of flexible tape. The stake provides support so that when the wind blows, the little tree doesn't snap. In parenting or education, we call this scaffolding. You, or actually your prefrontal cortex, is that support stake. The child is obviously the little tree, and your routines and the environment you create are the flexible tape. Now, knowing that their GPS won't be fully installed until they are 25, you know, that prefrontal cortex that only develops till the end of 25, what is our job as parents and teachers? We can't just let them fail to teach them a lesson if we don't give them the tools to learn from that failure yet. But on the flip side, we can't do it all for them, or they'll never learn to grow into their own strength. What does that scaffolding look like in primary school? That support stake. When we say that you're essentially co-piloting the GPS, there are 3 things you can focus on: the support stakes. These support stakes, and we're going to go through each of them and give a practical example of what it looks like, are A, adapting their environment slightly at home; B, letting them feel low-stakes consequences when they've messed up or when their executive functions have failed them; and C, having key conversations using specific language. An example of an environment support stake is this. Before bedtime, you designate one spot in the house for school bags. The support stake is this: a checklist on the wall, and the only conversation you have is simply, does your bag match the list? For grade 6s and 7s, you can even ask them to make a list of what needs to be in their bag the night before, put it against the wall where they put the bags, and your question is, does your bag match the list? Another example of a support stake in the environment is what we call the body double. Sometimes that support stake in the ground is just your presence. Sitting in the room while they work, you're not doing the math for them. Your presence is acting as an anchor for their focus. You can sit and do your own work. You can maybe even cook while they're sitting at the table, and your presence helps them to focus at the task at hand. Also, externalizing time is a very good environmental support stake. Instead of just yelling 5 minutes, use a visual kitchen timer so that they can see time disappearing. Having visual guides, a planner up in their home, is also a very good support stake. To stand in front of it in the beginning of the week and say, let's take a look at what our week looks like academically and with sports. Where are we going to do what? For grade 6s and 7s, you can ask them what their strategy is to plan and to manage their time during that week. Letting your child feel low-stake consequences is a great way to learn executive function. This changed my life with my own children the day that I learned to treat mistakes as data and not to let my emotions cloud the issue. In my conversations with the learners that I teach, especially the grade 6s and 7s, I've learned this about when they mess up. They generally don't mind being called out on it. They don't mind when you tell them that they've made a mistake or that they've messed up even. But what they do dread is the emotions around it. Imagine your GPS having a hissy fit or being sarcastic when you take a wrong turn. I said turn right twice. Why didn't you listen? What's wrong with you? So here's a scenario for you. When you come home from dropping your kids off at school and you see that project that they worked on last night still sitting on the kitchen counter, they forgot to take it to school. You have three options. Your choice determines which muscle your child builds. Option 1 is the rescue. This causes low executive function growth. You immediately grab it, you drive to school and you drop it off at the office. The problem is solved, but your child's brain learns, my mom is my backup memory, I don't need to develop a final check system. Option 2 also stunts executive function growth, and we call this the shame cycle. Jy los hy taak net daar, maar oumatie as daai kind by die huis kom, dan kry hy dit. The problem is that if you give your child an emotion-filled lecture when they get home, the child focuses on your anger and not on the mistake. So they become defensive rather than reflective, which you want them to be. Option 3 is the strategic consultation. You leave the project, you let nature take its course. The child has to tell the teacher they don't have it. And when they get home, you treat this as data. This is the conversation. Mom, I noticed your project stayed home today. How did that play out at school? Child, I had to tell Mr. Smith. I lost 5 marks for it being late. Mom, that's a tough consequence. Let's look at the data. What part of your morning plan broke down? Then, parent, wait for silence because their processing speed needs to catch up. Then you'll find your child can say, I left it on the counter to dry and forgot to put it in my bag. And then mom can say, okay, so the drying step needs a reminder. What can you do differently next time? And also, stop and pause, let them come up with a way. If you say, maybe you should put a sticky note on your bag next time, okay? Their response is, okay. You did the executive functioning, the planning, and the strategy, and the child just agrees. No learning occurred. If you give them 10 to 15 seconds, they will come up with that strategy. The next support stake is having key conversations using specific language. Before you praise your child for remembering to bring something home, doing well in a test, being picked for a team, take 3 seconds to ask yourself, what skill did they use? Was it focus? Was it planning? Was it emotional regulation? And praise that skill. When you name the skill, you give them a tool they can use again tomorrow, and you show that you value the process more than the result. Let's have a few examples. 1. You remembered to bring that form I asked. That's a huge win for your organization. What was your trigger that reminded you to ask the teacher? I see you underlined the keywords in the questions before answering. That shows you were reading for detail and not rushing. Which question did you have to spend the most time thinking about? How did you handle it? Did you manage your time properly? You realized you were getting brain fog and took a water break to reset. That's a great way to manage your energy so you don't burn out on a hard task. I noticed you set your clothes out tonight. By doing that work now, you've removed the decision from your brain for tomorrow when you might be tired. How do you think your morning will feel different now that you don't have to hunt for socks? Praise the skill. In our home, we raised our 3 kids to understand the glitching GPS concept. Because they understood the science, that their prefrontal cortex was still under construction, they understood why we asked specific questions and had specific conversations about school, even their relationships and their time management. They also understood, though believe me, they really appreciated it at the time, why we let them walk through certain consequences. Because we did our best to keep negative emotions and shame out of the conversations, the process remained positive, especially through the volatile teenage years. We weren't mean parents, we were just the GPS navigators helping them to recalibrate. So parents, I ask you, don't let the sapling push the stake away. As your child hits the tween and the teen years, they'll naturally try to assert independence. They might roll their eyes at your checklist or tell you they have it under control when you can clearly see the car is heading for a ditch. Here's the reality. You are the one with a fully developed prefrontal cortex. Your child is the little tree in the storm. Their brain is not yet physically capable of fully grasping the long-term consequences of their choices, but yours is. So when they try to push you away, don't retreat. They may think they don't need the support, but their biology says otherwise. Your job isn't to carry them, it's to drive that stake firmly into the ground next to them. So be the anchor. When their emotions are high, keep yours low. Be the external brain. Provide the structure they can't yet build for themselves. And be the strategic consultant. Don't do the work for them. Guide them with conversations. They might not thank you for it today, but by providing that sturdy scaffolding now, you're ensuring that by the time they hit 25,